Hi and welcome to my screencast about the HSC French Beginners syllabus, this time looking at assessment. Okay, so this is fairly short, just to bring your attention to the type and weightings of assessments. So if you remember that there are three objectives: one, interacting, to do with listening and speaking and writing and reading; two, understanding texts; and three, producing texts. So with listening skills, you have that as a weight of 30% overall. This is internal assessment, by the way, so these will be your assessment tasks done at school. Reading is also 30%, writing 20%, and speaking 20%. So there's more weight given to the receptive skills of listening and reading. Having said that, probably the most difficult one is listening, and it's worth 30%. So that is one that's worth spending, time on, which is difficult because you often have to do that outside of class, but it really is worth focusing on your listening skills along with all the others. But listening being that 30% and being quite hard, it's a really important one to focus on. So that's internal assessment, and depending on the school, that can happen at different times throughout the year. Sometimes the assessment task is given the full weighting for that particular skill. Other times it's broken up over different tasks, and it just depends on the school. Okay, so the HSC external assessment is broken up into a written examination, which is worth 80 marks, and an oral exam, which is worth 20, and that's on the next slide. But this one here, the written one, it goes for 2 hours and 30 minutes plus 10 minutes reading time. So there are three sections. In the first section, you have your listening and responding questions, which are short answer and objective response questions in English, again worth 30 marks. You then have section 2, which is the reading and responding, which is again short answer and objective response questions in English, worth 30 marks. So in the listening section, you normally get a range of different tracks, different questions. It's not all one big long listening thing, there's a whole bunch of them. And the reading and responding, you tend to get 4 or so little texts to read and show comprehension of in English. Okay, you then have section 3, writing. So that's broken up into 2 parts, part A and part B. And in part A, you have one text written in French and then another one in French. The first one's worth 4 and the next one's worth 6, so this first one is shorter than the second one. And then you have part B, which is worth 10 on its own, and that's a text to be written in French, and there's a choice of 2 tasks, but both will require the same text type, and that's worth 10. So that all adds up to 80. Okay, and then the second sort of part of the external assessment is the oral. That's worth 20 marks, and that's where you engage in a conversation with an examiner about your personal world. I will go through this in more detail in another screencast, exactly how to approach this, but this is just explaining what assessment and things you can expect. Okay, so in this series on the Board of Studies Stage 6 French Beginners syllabus, we've looked at introducing the syllabus, the objectives and outcomes, the content, and assessment. And also regarding the syllabus and French beginners in general, you have screencasts about skills in reading, writing, and interacting, strategies to help you learn vocabulary and grammar, and advice about the oral and written exam. So merci et bon courage. My name's Fiona Bowie. My email address is bowieeducation@gmail.com, on Twitter at FionaR_B, or my blog, frenchclassroom.wordpress.com. Thanks.